So for a long time, in order to qualify for SSI and Medi-Cal in California, you had to be poor, and all of your money had to be held in a special needs trust. But times have changed. To qualify for Medi-Cal now, they don't look at your assets anymore. So do you still need a special needs trust if you're receiving Medi-Cal? Or can you use a less restrictive trust? We'll talk about that in this video. So if you're disabled for many years, in order to qualify for Medi-Cal, which is called Medicaid in most states, you've had to have under $2,000 of countable assets. And that's very, very low. And then if you receive some money from somewhere like a litigation settlement or maybe an inheritance from somebody that goes directly to you, you need to set up for yourself a first-party special needs trust and transfer those assets into the trust in order to protect your Medi-Cal benefits. And I discussed this more on my video, how to receive an inheritance while receiving public benefits. Well, that just changed in California. Starting January 1st, 2024, Medi-Cal isn't considering assets anymore for eligibility. Wowzers, this is amazing. I talk about this more on my video, Medi-Cal updates for 2024, what you need to know. So I've had a lot of clients since then come and ask me, do they still need a first-party special needs trust to protect their Medi-Cal benefits? And I want to break down the situations where I think you still do need a special needs trust, and then also where you can use a different type of trust. So where you still need a special needs trust, first of all, if you're still receiving SSI benefits, supplemental security income, then you do need a special needs trust because SSI has an asset limit of $2,000 and that hasn't changed. That's federally based. California has not changed it. So every state, in order to receive SSI, you need to keep your assets below $2,000. And also, Section 8 housing just passed an asset limit of $100,000 as of January 1st, 2024. So in order to qualify for Section 8 housing, you need to have your assets below $100,000. Also, you might want a special needs trust to protect yourself from financial predators. A special needs trust always needs to be managed by somebody else. Someone else has to be the trustee. So if you're worried that you might be taken advantage of, you might want to transfer your assets into a special needs trust, and then somebody else is looking out for your benefit. But there are some people who may not need a special needs trust anymore. That could be people who are just receiving Medi-Cal, or maybe they're also receiving SSDI benefits or Medicare benefits, because SSDI and Medicare have never had an asset limit requirement. So you might think, okay, well, that's great. That's the asset limit, but what about the income limit? Well, Medi-Cal does still have an income limit. That hasn't changed. If you're disabled and you have more than, right now, it's $1,732 of income, that can bump you into the Medi-Cal share of cost category, where you have to pay a really high deductible for Medi-Cal services. I've discussed this recently in my video, how to reduce your share of cost. So if you're receiving Medi-Cal and you have a revocable trust, and the trustee, whether it's you or somebody else, distributes cash to you, that counts as income. And that could count towards that $1,732 a month income limit. And if it bumps you over that limit, now you're paying share of cost, which is horrible. And we don't want that. So what's the solution for someone who's just receiving Medi-Cal or, other benefits that don't have an asset limit, but they still have to look out for their income? So there's this type of trust called an Obra 93 trust. So Obra stands for Omnibus Budget Reconciliation Act of 1993. So this was actually passed a long time ago, but we never really looked into it because that asset limit of $2,000 was so onerous that what I'm about to describe just wouldn't apply, but now it does.
Hey everyone, if you like my mom's video, like and subscribe.
So an Obra 93 trust is really any trust that you set up for yourself, except it's not a first-party special needs trust and it's not a pooled special needs trust. It can be revocable or irrevocable. You could manage the trust or someone else can manage the trust. It's really like a revocable living trust, but there are some constraints. So from this Obra trust, if you make a distribution, or whoever the trustee is makes a distribution to a third-party vendor, like pays directly for your rent or buys stuff for you, anything that doesn't go to you as cash, that does not count as income for public benefits purposes. But if the trustee makes a distribution to you of cash from the Obra 93 trust, then that does count as income for Medi-Cal purposes, and that could add up and maybe bump you over that share of cost limit. Also, an Obra trust can't mandate income distributions. So for example, it can't say the trustee shall distribute all of the income every year directly to the beneficiary. Or maybe it doesn't say, the trustee can distribute 5% of the principal, or the trust says the trustee shall distribute 5% of the principal directly to the beneficiary every year. Those types of things are not allowed in an Obra 93 trust. So can the beneficiary be trustee of an Obra 93 trust? Well, I already mentioned, yes, they can, but I usually recommend that they not act as trustee. And why would that be? Well, it can be kind of complicated to understand what can you distribute and what you can't. And a beneficiary might just think, I'm just going to take out this cash just this one time because it's just easier than paying directly for a thing. I just want some cash. And then that could interfere with their Medi-Cal benefits and bump them over that share of cost. So the beneficiary might not understand these nuances, or maybe they just forget. But either way, I think that's really dangerous, and we don't want to even approach that. Now, please keep in mind that this is all really new, okay? And we're all still learning about it. Also, the Department of Healthcare Services, which runs Medi-Cal, they're just starting to learn about this too. And so they may have some pushback. If you start talking to them directly about Obra 93 Trust, they may not know what you're talking about because they still have a lot to learn as well. Okay, so finally, if you're not getting Medi-Cal at all, but you're getting SSDI or child disability benefits and or Medicare, then really you shouldn't need a special needs trust. In case you decide, somebody decides that they want to set up a special needs trust for you, but it really isn't necessary because those passive income limits and the asset limits really don't apply for those types of benefits. Okay, so here's the breakdown. So a special needs trust might not be needed if you're getting SSDI and Medicare and you're not receiving SSI, Medi-Cal, or Section 8 housing benefits. In that case, you might just use a regular revocable trust. Now, if you're receiving Medi-Cal benefits but not SSI or Section 8 housing, then you can use an Obra 93 trust. And if you are receiving SSI and Section 8 housing benefits, then you still do need a special needs trust because they're looking at your assets, and anything held in a revocable trust counts as a countable asset for public benefits purposes. All right. So I know this might feel like it's as clear as mud. So what do? I encourage you, if you have questions on this, to call our office if you're in California. You can reach out, we can talk you through, okay, which type of trust might be the most appropriate for you and your loved one. I also encourage you to watch my new video on Medi-Cal updates for 2024, and I'll see you over there.
Hello everyone. If you liked my mom's video, don't forget to like and subscribe. See you all next time.